this in there. Welcome, thank you. We just finished up in Palatine. Thanks for coming out on a Saturday. Let's begin as we always begin. Stand if you can. If you can't, let's say the pledge. Welcome, welcome. Let me get myself all settled. Thank you for coming out. I'll get into that in a minute. Hi.
Hi.
How'd she talk you into coming? How did she talk you into coming? That's outstanding. Thanks for coming.
We're trying to come up with a question for you.
Okay, here's the deal though. When you're done, demand ice cream or something good when this is all done. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Hey, you. Before we get into it, and we're going to... Oh, another one! Well, then you need ice cream. You need something even more. How are you? We're going to spend the next hour and 20 minutes, and we're going to have a lively discussion. I can promise you that. It'll be interesting. You won't be bored. I can promise you that. But before we get started, we always start with the pledge. We always remind ourselves, Republican, Democrat, liberal, conservative, somewhere in between, we're fighting like cats and dogs right now. But this is the greatest country in the history of the planet. It's primarily that way because of two things. It was founded on an idea, freedom, and that freedom has been defended for 200 plus years. So before we start to get into a big debate about some of the most important issues going on right now, let's remind ourselves that, again, it's why we say the pledge, and it's why I always like to recognize and acknowledge any man or woman who served this country. Always remind ourselves, men and women, Republicans and Democrats, have fought and died for this country, have been maimed for this country to defend the freedom that we're fighting about now. So, if you have served this country, if you have worn the uniform, either stand up or raise your hand and be recognized. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Thank you, thank you. Thank you. Welcome. Thanks for coming out to Elk Grove. My name... I didn't forget. I was taking a sip. My name is Joe Walsh. I am the congressman in the 8th Congressional District. Let's take 20 seconds and get everybody up to speed. We just redistricted. We do it every 10 years. It stinks the way we do it. Whatever party is in charge, they get to decide what the districts are going to look like. In Illinois, the Democrats are in charge. So in Illinois, Democrats drew districts to make life miserable for people like me. We Republicans tried to overturn the map. We shoulda. I wish we did. We didn't, so we have to live with this map. I live in McHenry, which is, hard to believe, almost in the middle of the current 8th district. They drew me in with another Republican freshman. And though that Republican freshman and I are very different, at the end of the day, I didn't feel right taking on another Republican freshman. So I decided to take on this challenge. Welcome! Snuck up the back way. Always keep your eye on guys like that.
You didn't call.
Huh?
You were supposed to call.
Okay. Welcome, welcome. So I decided to run for re-election here in what is the new 8th district. Towns are, Dundee, Carpentersville, Schaumburg, Hoffman Estates, Palatine, Elk Grove, Arlington Heights, some of Buffalo Grove, down into Addison, Bloomingdale, Villa Park, Elmhurst, York, you name it. Villa Park. It's a big, Roselle. It's a big, crazy-shaped district. They drew it to elect a Democrat. They think that whoever wins that Democratic primary is going to have a cakewalk to winning this election. Ain't going to happen. I'm going to take this challenge on, and we're going to win down here, and I'll tell you why later, but that's not why I'm here. Look, I went to Washington a year and a half ago. It feels like 30 years ago. And I made a lot of promises. I said I was going to go there and I was going to raise a big old stink. because this country we love is broke. We are beyond broke. And if we don't do something about that debt really quickly, I fear for the country these two are going to grow up in. Shame on all of us for letting it get to this point. I went there and I yelled at Democrats and I yelled at Republicans. This is wrong. We got to stop it. I think I've done a pretty good job because right now I'm enemy number one when it comes to the Democrats. They want to go after Joe Walsh with everything they've got.
Chris Matthews don't like you.
Chris Matthews doesn't like me. Also made a lot of enemies on the Republican side. Though I'm a Republican, I grabbed my party establishment and I wanted to shake it up and say, come on, Republicans, you lost your way. And that's part of why we're in this mess. And so I've done it. And that's why I'm going to take on the challenge of this new district. Because I refuse to believe that most people in Elk Grove and Palatine and Schaumburg and Elmhurst, most people in these towns like the direction this president's taken this country. I refuse to believe it. And as much as a lot of people might be mad at the Joe Walshes of the world, because we're there, we're loud, and we're trying to stop all this spending, I can't believe that most people in Elmhurst, Schaumburg, and Palatine truly want to go back and put Nancy Pelosi in charge of the House. I just can't believe it. But now let me tell you something, folks. Actually, I don't want to get into that yet. So, I made a bunch of pledges. I pledged when I went to Washington that there wouldn't be a member of Congress that does more of these than me. There would not be a member of Congress that holds more town halls than I do. And there isn't one. And I'm going to keep doing it. I turned down my congressional health benefits. I turned down my congressional pension. I sleep on the floor in my office. I come home all the time. I'm a term limit guy. I don't believe members of Congress should make these lifetime positions. So I've limited myself to 6 years. Part of doing this is because I am very old-fashioned. Not everybody in this room voted for me or will vote for me next time. But the district hired me. I work for the district. Politicians, Republican and Democrat, they flip that around. They think you work for them. They go to Washington. They stay there forever. They enrich themselves. They think they're kings and they're queens. They keep growing government and they forget about us. And I never, ever, ever wanted to be that way. It's why I keep doing this. I'm loud and I'm very outspoken and I make a lot of hard votes. But if I don't have the courage to come home and let anybody who wants to ask me a question and tell me what you think of me, then I don't deserve to be your congressman. The woman I beat, Melissa Bean, she didn't want to get in front of people. Most politicians, truthfully, don't like to do what I do here. Most politicians don't like to do open town halls. You may hate me. You can ask me anything you want. You can say anything you want about me. That scares the dickens out of politicians. Somebody's taping me right now. This young gentleman's taping me right now. Every single word I say is going to be used against me in a campaign commercial. That scares the bananas out of politicians. He's working for Tamir Raja. Every single word I say is going to be used against me. And see, no. This is the lay of the land. This is the political world we live in right now. That's fine. You see, it doesn't matter to me. My God, there's enough video on Joe Walsh right now. You don't even need to be taping me right now. I'm not going to stop. This is the most important thing I do besides take a vote. Now, my town halls, if you've been to them, these are free-for-alls. These are wide open. There aren't a lot of rules. You can ask me a question about anything. Personal, political, or policy. Doesn't matter to me. I got one rule. One rule at my town halls. Respect. you better treat everybody in this room with respect. Liberal, conservative, treat everybody in this room with respect. Try to treat me with respect. I'll try to treat you with respect. Treat everybody in this room with respect, and the next 5.5 hours will be a lovely exercise in democracy. It won't be 5.5 hours. It's already out there. All right, folks. Many of you have heard, I'm going to take about 5 minutes and just spout out for a little bit, and then we're going to open it up to questions and thoughts. Many of you have heard me say this, so I'm going to say it again. I'm going to keep saying this for the next 8.5 months, and then I'm going to say it after the election. I don't have grandkids yet. God willing, one day soon I will. My kids are 24, 21, and 17. Hopefully soon, one day soon I'll have grandkids. I can tell you from the bottom of my heart, this next election in November is the most important election in the lives of those kids not even born. If you don't believe that, you're missing out. If enough people don't believe that, this country's going to miss out. Our country right now, this country we all love, is shaking at its very core. Don't tell me we're $15 trillion in debt. We're not. It's more like 80 to 90 trillion. Don't tell me the unemployment rate is 8.3%. It's not. It's more like 15, 16, or 17%. Don't tell me that the housing industry is recovering. There'll be more foreclosures this year than last. This country right now that we all love is at a point where I think if we don't get it right, we may never get it back. And what's going on right now is really simple. Most important election coming up ever. It's also the easiest election I can remember. Look, you got President Obama over here. President Obama has a worldview. Whoever the Republican nominee is, Romney, Gingrich, Paul, Santorum, is going to believe in totally different things. I'm going to run against a Democrat. What that Democrat believes and what I believe, we believe in two different Americas. The president believes in a different America than every single Republican nominee. Nobody this year should be confused where you stand. And I wish, because it's such an important election, I wish we'd run a really good campaign. I wish it wouldn't get personal and negative. I wish it would just focus on the issues. Imagine how easy a campaign would be, and how short it would be, and all the crap we wouldn't have to listen to if all we did was say something like this. If they only spoke the truth. Take energy. This president does not want us to drill for oil. He doesn't. Whoever the Republican nominee is wants to be drilling tomorrow. Easy. This president believes in Obamacare and wants us to get to a place where we have government-run health care for everybody. That's what he believes. If you believe that, elect him. Whoever the Republican nominee is going to repeal Obamacare within a month. This president wants to tax small businessmen and women. It's what he wants to do. God bless you. Whoever the Republican nominee is wants to cut taxes on businessmen and women and simplify the code. Okay, I might rub some nerves with this one. This president does not understand or believe in freedom of religion. Whoever the Republican nominee is going to fight with everything he has to defend the first words in the First Amendment of the Constitution. Folks, this won't be hard. It doesn't matter what Democrat I run against. It doesn't matter. Whatever Democrat I run against is with Obama and wants Nancy Pelosi to be the speaker. And if enough people in this district want to keep going that way, they're not going to vote for me. But it's not more complicated than that. But we lose as a country. We lose as a country if this year, if this very important year, we talk about where the president was born, or we talk about Mitt Romney's religion, or we talk about how many vacations Michelle Obama's gone on, or we talk about how many times Newt Gingrich has been married. If our campaign turns into something like that, folks, we as a country lose. We got a very small window to right this ship. I truly believe we've got 1 to 2 elections to turn this thing around, or that very vision that our founders had that started this country is gone. You know, when I said, when I campaigned, that the country's going through a revolution, it scared Democrats. Oh, revolutions. Chris Matthews just would go crazy. Al Sharpton would go crazy. The country is going through a revolution. It's a good thing. What does that mean? You've heard me say that before. What does that mean when I say we're going through a revolution? It means to me we're having a long overdue fight about the soul of America. Now, isn't that a good thing? We always want the fight to be respectful. We don't want to be shooting each other. We don't want to be punching each other. Where'd my Gatorade go? But I got to tell you, everybody, if you're upset with how much we're fighting in Washington, tough. I'm glad we're fighting. For too many years, we've been asleep. All of us. We've lived our lives. We've tried to raise a family. We've tried to grow a business. We try to go on vacation once a year. We coach our kids in soccer. Every 2 or 4 years an election comes along and we don't really pay attention. And we keep voting for the same names. And it's like we woke up after 40 or 50 years and said, my God, oh my God, we're broke. We have a government we can't afford. We've got governments doing things, our government doing things our government never did before. We slept and we woke up, and I'm glad we woke up. But folks, this isn't going to be easy. I mean this. This is not going to be easy. I'm going to wrap up in about 20 seconds. The very notion of what America is to this president, I find frightening. I don't know him, so none of this is personal. Everything I say, and I've been very outspoken about this president, I don't know him personally. This isn't personal with me. It's why it's very easy for me to say that, because I'm asked all the time, Joe, who are you endorsing? Romney, Santorum, Gingrich, or Paul? I don't like any of them. We need a Reagan. We need an Eisenhower. We need a George Washington. Then I just shake my head. Romney, Gingrich, Santorum, Paul, full disclosure, none of them really excite me a whole heck of a lot. All good men. What excites me, what impassions me, what gets me worked up is this president. Again, not personal. The direction he's taking this country. That's what gets me going. You see, I believe every single day he's in the White House, he is destroying what makes this country great. And if you believe that, My only job is to respectfully remove them from the White House. So if it's Romney, Gingrich, Santorum, or Paul, whenever we got one, and I hope we have one, and I think we will, I'm going to run through a wall to get that person elected. Doesn't matter to me who it is. We have got to get this election right. And it's interesting, let me close with this. It's interesting what happened in Afghanistan this last week. Because we're so focused on how much this country is hurting. We're not working, we're losing our homes, and we're broke. Shame on our politicians for getting us here. But just think about what happened in Afghanistan this last week. American military personnel. A lot of people don't know the details. Because unfortunately, a lot of us don't pay attention to the details. Unfortunately, the mainstream media doesn't give us the details. But American military men inadvertently, accidentally burned some Korans. In fact, they tried to retrieve them. And the Muslim world went crazy. 2 of our men were shot in the head yesterday by an Afghan policeman because of that. Our president apologizes to Karzai, apologizes to Afghanistan. 2 of our guys are shot in the head. I don't hear an apology from over there. I don't hear outrage from my president. Folks, this is outrageous. This is outrageous. I worry so much for this country. And I just think we have a president who all he does is apologize for this country, and I'm tired of it. I'm tired of it. We accidentally burned some books. The Muslim world goes crazy. 2 of our guys are shot in the head, and I don't hear a peep out of my White House. It's shameful. I'm going to stop there. Let's open this up again. Questions, thoughts, comments about anything. Try to speak as loud as you can. Let's get rolling. Who wants to start us? All the way in the back, my friend.
I think we have a problem. The problem is the Congress and the Senate of this United States. Because nobody wants to take ideas from the Republican Party or the Democratic Party. The independent voters of this country are so sick and tired of the rhetoric going on both sides of the floor. Both sides of the Senate side, both sides of the congressional side. Nothing is getting done. Nothing is getting done. When Bush and Clinton were president, at least somehow there was some compromise, people working together, trying to get things done, and things actually got done. This is the first time in my lifetime, I'm 55 years old, have ever seen a political system in such shambles. I can't even look at this to say whether it be Obama or Romney or anybody the president. It's not going to change. Who's ever in the head, it's not going to change because the true power does not rest with the president. The true power rests with you and the people you work with who do absolutely nothing except take their ideas from their party and the other party and hold so strong to it that nothing gets done. And so when we got this, we're going to repeal this, we can't just go in and just repeal something. It's all this crazy talk. What we need to do is get this budget deficit in order. We need to make sure that people like us who are retiring, that the folks have Medicare.
Fantastic points. But I don't want you to disparage where other people are coming from. Let me agree and disagree with you about a couple things. I don't care if it's Bush, Clinton, Reagan, Washington, Jefferson, Obama. Let's be real. The president is a branch of government. He's got some power. You got to acknowledge it. The president's got some power. Congress has power. The judiciary has power. No doubt about it. And part of what your frustration is right now, Republicans come in a year and a half ago and now we're controlling the House. Present, one party controls the White House, one party controls the Senate. Before we got there, the Dems did control all three. Now, I would argue that a part of the reason they sent us there was to sort of put a little check on what was going on. So you're getting more of this. You didn't have this 2 years ago. Obama and the Dems did control everything, and fair is fair. They set about to do things they believe in. They did pass their health care legislation. They passed a stimulus to do something about jobs. They've passed a couple mortgage programs to help people refinance. So they did do some things.
Only because it wasn't filibuster. Because the answer to the filibuster thing, there was really no power between the Democrats and the Republicans. The filibuster thing, the fact that nobody filibustered any of the Obama stuff that went through is why this stuff went through. There wasn't a real health care plan Andy really wanted. It wasn't everything he wanted.
That who did what?
That Obama. Obama didn't get everything in that health care plan.
No, well, hold on. Well, actually, I'll agree with you. That's not what he wanted, but it's what the Democrat Party wanted, because it was voted on by all Democrats and not a Republican voted for it. So it was what the party wanted, and he's part of that. I think you're right. It's not all of what he wanted, but here's what I'm going to ask of you. Again, you may disagree, and that's fine. You and I could sit down and have a beer, and we'd agree with the problems. Too many people aren't working. Too many people are losing their homes. Too many businesses are going out of business, and we're broke. As a country, we're broke. That's a lot on our plate. What are we going to do about those things? The president gets elected 3 years ago. Hold on. And the Democrats own Washington, and they set out to do what they believed in to address all those problems. The American people kind of went like this. If they didn't kind of go like this, they wouldn't have sent me to Congress. Because part of why they sent us there was to say, time out, Mr. President, you're going too fast, stop. And so what's happened the last year is, we've only been there a year. It's like we've been doing this. Stopping the president, don't do any more. But these are tough problems that aren't going to be solved in a year. And so the president still has a lot of solutions that he's got for these problems. Republicans believe in totally different solutions. And so in a situation like that, right now you're not going to get a lot of reaching across the aisle. And I'd argue, even though this is on tape, so here's a commercial against Walsh, we shouldn't reach across the aisle right now. These are, then I think, see what I think then, to your point, you make a great point, eventually the American people are going to get sick of us doing this.
We already are.
Okay? That's why November's so important. If enough Americans, hey, look, we all got to grow up. We got to quit bitching and we got to grow up. And America's got to pick their side. They got to decide. We're not working. We're losing our homes. We're in debt. Do I think the president's going to get us out of this? And if America thinks he will, I'll be the first one to raise my hand and say, you got to get rid of people like me. Well, exactly. I think the American people got to decide, I want to put the Democrats back in charge of everything, or I'm going to put the Republicans in charge of everything and see what they can do. And if they blow it, who knows what's coming. But I think you're right. You and I might agree on that. I think America's got to pick their side. They got to pick their direction. Because I think a lot of people are getting sick of this. But I'm going to go back to my first point. Buckle up. Men died for this country. Do you know our founders risked everything to start this country? You're telling me a little year or 2 year fight about they can't get along in Washington? We can't put up with that? We all got to toughen up. These are important problems. They're going to take a long time to solve. It's going to take some time. Thoughts, issues, questions? All the way in the back, sir.
Yeah, I'd like to comment a little bit about the transformation of this country.
Do me a favor. Put that a little closer to you.
there's been a transformation in this country.
We do need to come together to fix our problems. But what I'm saying to everybody is, and come on, everybody take a breath and smile. It's taken us a long time to get to this point in America where we are beyond broke. Both parties did this to us. We let it happen. It's not going to change overnight. This fight that we're having, this revolution, it's just started. This has just started. And I'm glad you're ticked off. I'm glad a lot of people are getting angry. I'd much rather have that than we're sleepwalking through history. Because again, I keep going, what's his name? I keep coming back to Connor. What's his name? Timothy. This whole election is about the country you're going to give Timothy and Connor. Let me ask everybody a question. And be honest with me. These are no fun if you're not honest. I want you to genuinely, no matter what age you are, except for YouTube Connor, everybody in the room, raise your hands if you believe you've had a better quality of life than what your parents' generation had. Raise your hand if you've had it better than what your parents' generation had. Raise your hand. Put them down. Honestly, raise your hands if you truly believe your kids' generation is going to have a better quality of life than what you've had. Raise your hand. Look around. There's always one! No! This is so important. Americans are asked this question. Every generation we're asked this question. And we're Americans. We're hopeful. We are the most hopeful, entrepreneurial people in the world. We always want to believe our kids are going to have it better. Folks, for the first time in our history, most of us, every audience I'm in front of, it's the same. First question, every hand goes up. Second question, maybe one goes up. For the first time in our history, we don't believe our kids are going to have it better. That is frightening. That is frightening. Why is that? It's because we're worried about what's going on overseas. We've got evil people who want to kill us. And I don't think this administration understands that. But mostly it's because we are in debt. We have such a big government. We've asked so much of government. And I'm afraid, we're all afraid, we're not going to make the hard decisions. And Connor and Thomas are going to be left to pay the bill. Because Timothy and Connor and Timothy and Connor are going to be left to pay the bill. He's going to be some wealthy investment banker in New York. He's going to make $300,000 to $400,000 a year. But because we didn't have the courage to address our debt, 80% of that's going to go to the government. Shame on us. We're living longer and longer, right? Americans are. It's a great problem. It's a great thing to have. We're now 94 years old and we're playing golf with new knees and new hips. We got it all. But we're not talking about who's paying for that. Medicare, this thing we all love, Medicare will be gone in 10 years unless we fix it. And the Democrats, they just say, oh, don't touch it. Let's hope Republicans say something about Medicare, and then we're going to hit them over the head. So Democrats won't do anything about it, but we as a country have to have the courage, because Medicare won't be around for him. Social Security won't be around for him. And it may make you feel really good to say, I don't care, I paid into it, I want mine, and next generation be damned. That's not the kind of country we want to live in. That's what we're leaving to the next generation. And to be fair, what's your name? Ron. To be fair to Ron, it ain't just Obama that put us here. Both parties have grown this thing called government without even thinking about it. Now I will tell you, to be political, we were sent to Washington because this president has done things we've never seen before. If I'd have been in Congress, Ron, I'd have gone after George W. Bush every single year. Do you know that George W. Bush, in 8 years, increased our national debt by $4 trillion. Shame on him. 8 years. George W. and Congress, all of them. A pox on all their houses. Okay, I'm with you. George Bush increased our debt $4 trillion in 8 years. This president, in 3 years, has increased it $4.5 trillion. Going on 5.
There's a reason for that.
Yeah, that's not, folks.
Terrorism.
That's not right. And we got to fix it and stop it. The president puts forth another budget 2 weeks ago that calls for another $1.5 trillion deficit next year. What I just said about Medicare and Medicaid and Social Security, the president knows. He knows it's not going to be around, but he won't do anything about it. That's not right. We need people, Republicans and Democrats, who could give a darn about their next election and are going to go to just try to fix these things. We don't have enough of us yet. Thoughts, issues, questions, guys? Yes, sir.
What to say?
Right there. Put that in front of him.
A couple of thoughts.
Good question. First, on big corporations, look, here's one where both parties are to blame. It doesn't matter if the president is Obama or Bush. They both worship big corporations. They both worship the big banks. They both bailed out the big banks. Goldman Sachs has a revolving door to the Obama White House, just like they did to the Bush White House. The problem for all of us, it's almost not Republican versus Dem. It's the big guys against all the rest of us. We bailed out the big banks. Community banks are dying every week. We're losing them every week. We have a complicated, idiotic tax code that the big corporations and wealthy individuals can figure out all the loopholes, and they end up like GE paying zero in taxes. We can't do that, so we all get hit by that. Small businesses are dying. Big corporations are fine. We got to look out for the little guy.
But distinguish the bailout between banks and the card companies, because they were different, right? Correct?
Yeah, banks and AIG, we bailed out a lot of different industries and companies.
Liquidity.
Absolutely.
That's a lot different than giving.
No, and you can make a strong argument for bailing out the banks. Different issue. I wouldn't have supported it, but I understand the argument. But you're right. We bailed out car companies.
But it's a different bailout there. That's a
Absolutely, they were all different. The point is, our government bailed out a lot of different companies and industries that I'd argue we shouldn't have done, but we did it. But it's the little guy that's taking on the chin. Here's the deal with Social Security. Social Security's been a game for years. You know, you and I know that. There's no box that everybody puts their money into and it goes out to Social Security benefits. Politicians come in and they steal from it every year. So we got to figure out how to save Social Security. Because don't worry, politicians are going to keep borrowing money to pay for the Social Security benefits. They're not going to stop doing that. The problem is, eventually that formula is going to break. Because we got 10,000 baby boomers a day retiring. And they're not just retiring and living a year or 2 or 3 like they were when Social Security came into place. They're living 20 and 30 and 40 years. Come on. This demands some honest reform. We need a real discussion about how to maybe raise the retirement age creatively. We need an honest discussion about means testing benefits. And I would argue we need an honest discussion and let younger people start to save and plan for their own retirement. Otherwise, it will not be around. Yes, sir. If I were king of the world, how do we get the country working again? To me, it's pretty simple. And I love this example. Let's be honest, all you Republicans. When President Obama came into the White House, he had a big pile of you-know-what on his desk, right? He didn't create this mess. Cannot blame him for the recession. He came into office and it was right there on his desk. he decided to do something about it. And what he decided to do was, because this is how he thinks, I'm going to use government to fix it. I'm going to borrow money to stimulate the economy. I'm going to have Washington create jobs. I'm going to regulate businesses. So he went a certain way. He said, I'm going to borrow money, spend a lot of money to stimulate the economy. Let me give you another example, and then I'm getting to your question. Ronald Reagan, when he came into office in the early 80s, just like Obama, Reagan came into the White House with a big mess on his desk. Every bit as bad as the mess Obama had. Reagan did the exact opposite. He said, I got a big mess. America's not working. Government's too big. Interest rates are through the roof. What am I going to do? He did the opposite of what Obama did. He didn't raise taxes. He cut taxes. He didn't increase regulations. He cut regulations. He basically said, I'm going to take this thing called Washington, and I'm going to get it out of the way so that all these people out here can do their magic and create jobs and grow. Now, from where I sit, there's no comparison in what happened. What do you really want to do about the debt and get America working again? I'll start out really simply. Get government out of the way. Hold on, here's how. Here's how. Repeal every obnoxious regulation we've put on businesses that make it impossible for businesses to grow and hire. And I'll lead with the very first one. I know it's always in the news. You have to repeal Obamacare tomorrow. If you and I walked around and talked to 100 small business guys in Elk Grove, they'd all tell you the same thing. Obamacare scares the you-know-what out of me. You guys in Washington passed this thing. You don't know what's in it, right, Nancy? You don't know how much it's going to cost. And I'm a businessman with 100 employees, and I'm supposed to figure out what that's going to cost? Right now, guys, small businesses in this country, they're sitting on their hands. They're scared to death. Yes, sir.
Senator Kirk, he addressed this problem with Obamacare a couple months before he had a stroke on talk radio. He said that you get, as of, I think it's 2013 or 2014, this Obamacare kicks in, but if you don't get your employees insurance, you get a $3,000 fine. He said a lot of people will just pay the $3,000 fine rather than paying the $10,000 or $15,000 a year for coverage for each employee who has family coverage, and that eventually certain companies are going to be more competitive. The ones that aren't providing the insurance, they rather just pay the $3,000 fine. So, for example, let's say you want to hire 10 new employees, you pay the $3,000 a piece. You know, that's only $30,000 rather than, you know,
You're right, you're right, you're right, you're right.
He said eventually your competitor is going to say, hey, you know, if we're going to stay in business, we're going to have to quit giving insurance because we can't sell the product as cheap.
This is why I say he can't say this publicly because he knows the American people would go crazy. But Obamacare is really the first step toward everybody on government-run health care. That's where this president wants to go. And you make the great point. It's going to get to a point in the next year or two where businesses are going to be incentivized to just push their employees off of their health care, put them on the government-run health care, and it's cheaper to pay the fine. That's what the legislation is going to tell businesses to do.
He told us.
Quickly.
He also said that somebody wrote in a clause in that Obamacare that has to be able to be financially feasible, and he says the whole thing is going to fall apart when they find out it's not feasible.
Well, so let me just, and then we'll move. Just one quickie. Imagine this. You're President Obama. First of all, I don't know why he gets mad when I call it Obamacare. He should be proud of it because he loves it, right? You're President Obama. You just passed the biggest, best health care legislation since Medicare in the 60s. That's what he told us. If that's true, why have they given over 2,000 waivers to companies, unions, states, and organizations telling them they don't have to participate? Why, if it's so good, are there so many waivers? That should tell you everything right there. Let's go here and then there. Right here. Thanks, Andrew.
I'd just like to comment, especially on what the two gentlemen in the past in the back have said. The biggest problem in this country is quite simple. Both parties, and I do mean both, okay? Look what direction they've been going for especially since 1960, but even before then, to the left, to the left, to the left, on everything. It's not just economics, it's their whole philosophy about,
The country was founded on this kind of an idea. This was we'll call it the original American dream. You make $1. In the original America, that $1 is yours. What a quaint notion. It's your money. Now, we all want some government. So we all got to pay a little bit in taxes to support some government. But in the original American dream, you make $1, 90 cents of that $1 is yours. You give 10 cents to government, and government will do a few basic things. But here's the trade-off. In the original American dream, it's your money, it's your life. So, you take care of your kids. You find your health care. You get involved in your community. You take care of your parents as they get old. You grow a business. You decide what charity you're going to contribute to. And on and on. It's your money, it's your freedom, and it's your responsibility. That, folks, is the original American dream. We are 100 years away from that. Because here's the America we live in today. Obama didn't start this, but he's the poster child for it. In the new American dream, that $1 you make, it's not really your money. This is how politicians think. So right now, you're giving about 61 or 2 cents of that $1 to government. Because it's their money. And here's the trade-off. Government now will take care of everything. You're behind on your student loans? Government will bail you out. You fell behind on your mortgage? Government will take care of it. You're not smart enough to take care of your parents. Government will. You know what? You're not smart enough to shop for your own health care. Government will provide free health care. So the new American dream we live in, and look, folks, a lot of politicians believe in this. You're right. Republicans and Democrats moved us to this American dream. But in the new America that we live in right now, we're giving away all of our money, not all, a heck of a lot to government, and we're telling government to take care of us. Now, the sad thing about that America is, it doesn't work. Hold on. You guys are awful noisy in the front row. It doesn't work. We can take care of our parents better than the government can. We can decide our kids' schooling better than the government can. So it doesn't work. B, it's putting us in the poorhouse. Because we've given so much to the government to do, they're broke. We now have a really big government. Here's the saddest part of this new America. It gets us off the hook. I'm not going to take care of the guy down the street. I'm paying 60 cents in taxes. Government's got to do that. I'm not going to get involved in that charity. I give all my money to government. They should do it. It absolves us of responsibility of taking care of our fellow man. It has weakened us as a people. We've given up responsibility for our life. That is what, you want to talk about why we're all wound up right now? It's because these two American dreams, folks, are duking it out. They are colliding. Obama believes in the new American dream. I will go to my grave fighting for the original American dream. That's what we're fighting about. And Ron, I love you, and you and I are going to have a beer together later, but this is a fight. Go ahead, blue shirt. Use that microphone.
do you think this?
I don't want to get in trouble with my Republican Party as best as we can, comma, but not nearly enough. And here's why. I am probably one of the freshmen who oftentimes my leader, John Boehner, would love to throw in a garbage can. Because, and Ron, you and I may disagree on this, a lot of people think, the president said this in the State of the Union, the country's upset because Washington is broken. And that, I almost did jump from my seat when he said that, because I don't think the country's upset that Washington's broken. I think they're upset because the country's broke. So we've gone there with that attitude, and there's been tension in the Republican Party. We haven't done nearly enough. But, to your point, Republicans do a lousy job of marketing.
Yep.
We've probably passed 30 job bills out of the House. But we don't control the Senate, and so they don't go anywhere. The first month I was elected, we voted to repeal Obamacare. And if you don't think that's a jobs bill vote, you got another thing coming for you. A week ago, we voted in the House to pass the Keystone Pipeline, to overrule what the president said. But, and in between then, we voted to repeal an ungodly number of EPA regulations, which are keeping businesses from hiring. We have voted to open up drilling left and right. You're right. So, this is why this next election is so important. I really think you got to figure out what side you're on, respectfully, and give the whole city to that side. If you really want to get something done, put the Democrats back in charge again, or, I got the or in, because he's going to say, he's going to stop before the or put the Republicans in charge, and see what they can do. They each have their worldview.
You guys have to advertise. You do.
You think we should advertise?
You should. You should.
I know. Hey, it'll be easier once we have a nominee. Right now, the media is obsessed with the presidential fight. Once we have a nominee, these divisions will be clear. All the way in the back.
I think that if
Use that mic. Look, if you think of yourself as a Republican or a Democrat, in many ways, forget about that this year. Go back to the American dream. Pick the side you're on. I can tell you right now, how we stand right now, I've been in Washington a year. Virtually every Democrat I've met believes in the new American dream. They want government to be bigger. They want more of your money because they don't think it's your money.
Called socialism.
Now, most Republicans, not all, most Republicans believe in the first American dream. Many of us are driven by it, and some Republicans don't get it. But I can tell you, no hope going to the Democrats. If you give the town back to the Democrats, then we will spend money again like we don't have and like we've never spent before, and they will stifle business. That's what they believe in.
Socialism.
And you may not have a real conservative nominee as your presidential nominee.
oh heavens,
Where I sit, it doesn't matter. Thoughts, issues, yes, sir. And you let people keep more of their own money, they grow the economy. When you let that business down the street keep more of its money, a funny thing happens. They'll hire more people. You've got more taxpayers.
When you say taxes, always use the term tax, cutting the tax rate and tax revenue.
Yeah.
Use those, always.
Thank you.
It clears
Thank
it
you.
up.
Yes, sir. England has played with their version of the Buffett tax, raised taxes on all those big millionaires and billionaires. It's led to less government revenues. Again, this isn't rocket science. It's easy. If you're going to tax me a lot, I'm going to find a way not to pay those taxes. I'm going to find loopholes. If you simplify, remember folks, we all are taking it on the chin. I don't know about you, but I don't have $100,000 to pay accountants and lawyers to find every loophole in the code to pay zero in my taxes. GE does. Warren Buffett does. If you want to stop that abuse, just simplify the code. Get rid of all the loopholes. Give me one simple, flat tax that I can fill out on a sheet of paper. No loopholes. It's my money. I'll give a little bit to government. Simplify the whole thing. And that would be good for all of us. Before, I don't know. They just drew the district, so I'm up in McHenry now, but yes.
I understand that. My second question is, you've used the word respect several times in your talk today.
Have you always been as respectful to
No.
other elected officials?
No.
Can you comment on that?
Yeah, absolutely. And if I didn't say this at the beginning, I apologize. Always, always be respectful. Always try to be respectful. And I'm the first one that stepped over that line on a few occasions. You might have one instance in mind. I mean, I've said some pretty outspoken things about the president. Maybe a couple times I stepped over the line. What was the one? There was one in the fall where I said something and I apologized. I said his programs were idiotic or something and I apologized. So look, I want everybody to be impassioned. And when we have an impassioned fight, we're all going to step over the line sometimes. What we want all of us to do is, once you do it, recognize and apologize for it. Yes, sir. Anybody knows. If people can get out of this state, they're doing it.
Cancel their house.
I got an office up in Fox Lake and an office in Woodstock. We get calls weekly from small businesses. I'm not talking about Caterpillar and Sears. From small businesses, 50, 100, 130 employees who are trying to get out of Illinois. Now, most can't because it's pretty costly and it's a pain in the rear. But they all want to. If I had by the way, I'm like the poorest member of Congress. If I had a nickel for every time somebody this last year told me, individuals, I'm leaving the state, I'd be the wealthiest member of Congress. People are leaving, and this isn't hard to understand. We've made it impossible to live that American dream in this state. This was the most unfriendly business state before Quinn's tax increase. Now we're just off the charts. I'll say this, one last point.